Welcome in, everyone. It's time for another night shift, and let me tell you, things have been a-changing. A big bounce patch has hit Deadlock, and we are here to cover all the changes here in the night shift. ZP here with DDK and Dan. I mean, we're going to be going over some of the changes, but we can't even cover all of them in the amount of time it would take. It's been an unreal week.
My favorite thing about this patch was that if you look at the patch notes on the side, it classified it as a small patch. I'm like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense. It's actually a massive patch.
That's been a meme from Yoshi at this point. Like, it's happened too many times where Yoshi's like, we've made some small adjustments. It's just like, wait, you've completely changed how mid-boss works. Like, what in the world are you talking about? But I guess if the comparison is a large patch being 6 heroes being added, then, you know, I'll give that a bit of the pass. But for those who are just tuning in, wondering what in the world is Night Shift, well, it's some of the best in Deadlock. We open up with a best of one challenging match, and the winner goes on to the money match. And this week here in EU, it's going to be Leviathan taking on Fearless Furies. And, you know, Dan, some people may go, what's Leviathan? But in reality, it's just a bunch of the old One-Win alumni.
Yeah, and Fearless Furies as well. It also might be, if you haven't tuned in for a while, it might be like, you know, who the hell are these people as well? And they've changed their roster a bunch, and it's actually kind of dizzying, honestly. ZP, I've got to say, it's hard to keep track in Deadlock as to who plays on what team. It feels like it's kind of like a glorified pug situation with mixed teams for the most part, but obviously there are a lot of synergies that we start to see with a lot of the players, and Fearless Furies have been climbing the ranks and closing the distance to the teams like the Buff and Joys and Abrahams of the world. Although Buff and Joys, I guess there's some news there as well that we'll get into.
Yeah, Buff and Joys are on a hiatus, as it were. But yeah, you know, look, EU has been a little bit more of a shakeup. It used to be old reliable, where it was the same teams week in and week out. But the aftermath of Trolley, you know, got a little bit chaotic. But you know what's not chaotic, Dan? And you know what is old reliable? Our patron supporters here. Take a look at the Patreon wall of fame, as it were. You know, it's always good to see that grow here, Dan. People have been so good in just supporting the scene and, you know, helping us put on the show week after week.
Yeah, and Tezio right at the top there, the Night Shift board member. Is he Italian? I feel like Tezio. I feel like that's got an Italian ring to it. I guess maybe Jason will have a better sense as he's living over there at the moment. But he'll be joining us a little bit later. But yeah, we thank you for supporting the show, given the fact that it's still early days in Deadlock, and so all the community support is really helping to prop up all these weekly tournaments that we have, where we get to display the best Deadlock players and teams that the world currently has to offer. And it's gonna be such a cool origin story. You guys were here. You guys were here when it all began.
That's right. And of course, you know, it's still the beginning right now. We're still in the phase of the game where it's invite a friend. You know, this is truly, you know, it's step 0 right now, not even step 1, but it's cool to be here on the ground floor. Also, for tonight, you know, some people may have looked as like, oh, there's no title sponsor. Well, with your support, we're able to offer a baseline prize pool of $600 per team in each region. And on top of it, we are doing a little bit of crowdfunding. You can donate directly to the prize pool, and that will go to the teams here today. And in fact, last week, we went above our normal prize pool. In the Intel days, it was $1,000 per team. It went to around $1,250 per team last week. And no small part to Tezio just coming in, Dan, and dropping a 1,000.
Man, he's making it rain. You can't see, but I'm doing the thing. My camera is too zoomed in. I was doing that. Yeah, absolutely making it rain. We'll see what we managed to do this week. It's going to be super interesting because, like, in terms of the gameplay, we honestly, I don't know what to expect. CP, you know, I think we've all gotten some time on the patch, but you know, in terms of what the actual pro players are valuing right now is going to be totally up in the air as far as I understand. I haven't been watching any of the scrims.
Yeah, well, it is up in the air. Like, some things have stayed the same, and some things have radically changed. Not the least of which is, you know, a little sneak preview for the draft later. Billy is way up in prio. Warden is back, and Kelvin apparently didn't die. But, you know, that's a good lead into our pick priority from last week, where you are going to be seeing changes. But for those wondering what changed, or rather how last week went down, well, Dan, Shiv was kind of king.
Yeah, and I don't expect that to change at all either. Shiv is really, really good, and there's actually several reasons why that's not going to change with the new patch as we go through the notes maybe later on, or some of the highlights. But I think, you know, Holiday's interesting. You know, Holiday, I feel like kind of rose in priority pretty sharply, but it got quickly sort of nerfed, I think, in the recent patch as well. So his Holiday might kind of fall off in priority. I wouldn't expect us to see, you know, Paradox and Infernus go missing, but Yamato, I don't know. We're going to be needing to see some of those gun builds, perhaps, CP, to see Yamato kind of maintain that top spot.
Yeah, Yamato's interesting too because I think her ability to the jungle, she more than other heroes like kind of got hit by the jungle changes where stuff is just way more durable. And then you have interesting cases like Mina where in theory she got a lot worse this patch, but then in practice the 4.8k spirit spike may actually be super good for her. So there's multiple different views on that. But real quick, we'll go to our item priority of last week just to set the baseline in case anything has changed. And for last week, even with some changes, Spirit Shielding still number one. People really valuing things that let them not lose the lane phase instantly, Dan.
Yeah, and I am curious to see if it falls off at all in any sense, just because the early laning phase is something that has changed quite dramatically in some senses, just because of the way that the healing trooper now works, which is totally different than it did before. So I feel like the sustain is actually more important to a certain extent now, especially with more gun damage being able to be doled out in the early laning phase. So I would probably expect to see Spirit Shielding reactive, well, maybe not Spirit Shielding quite as high, but I don't know. I still think it's going to be an important laning tool. We're going to find out.
Of course, this is the small smattering of things that matter from the patch update that we're going to go here. We put together a quick hit of some of the biggest changes, and we'll kind of go down. But one of the biggest changes of all here, Dan, lane changes coming on in, where now you actually have to go in to collect the souls. You cannot fully hang back. Definitely hits heroes like Pocket that otherwise would be like, nah, I don't want to fight or buy anything until Majestic Leap. So your early laning is a little bit more active now.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and the 4.8k investment spike is something that you already mentioned, and this is pretty instrumental, perhaps in some of how the builds might come together, because, and this is another reason why I think Shiv actually might stay on top, or we talked about Warden off camera as well, being another one of these heroes that's coming. Warden's coming back, and it is in part due to the investment spike, where he's going to be getting items that are going to go across the different categories, spirits, vitality, and gun, and so he's going to be able to get these massive spikes based on how that works. Because now once you get to the 4.8k investment on a certain item, you get is it like plus 48 of that respective category, like spirits, gun. Is that the number? Now I'm blanking.
It depends on the which one it is. Like, for example, health is just a jump, I think, from like 17 to 34%. But basically, you are economically incentivized to hit 4.8k in the categories that you're actively using. And for some heroes, it's a really big spike. Like Spirit heroes just chunk in the early game, which is why, like, even with some of the nerfs of Spirit, some of the Spirit heroes may have, an even better timing window this time around. But other changes of note here, Walker changes, of course, coming on in, where, they're tankier, but a little bit less threatening. They're not stomping you from a mile away, even though they're stomping more. Buff nerf almost doesn't really cut it for some of these, where it's adjustments, where there's ups and downsides. Same with the neutrals, where it's a little bit harder to go through the jungle, but you get more money in turn. There's also general econ changes for lane splitting that we don't even have on here. A lot has been adjusted here, Dan, and it's definitely going to, create some differences in gameplay flow, especially at the highest level.
Yeah, we're going to certainly see a lot of differences in the priority. I think there's a lot of theory crafting that we're going to be doing in the draft as we see the value kind of change. And one thing that we've noted every week is that week to week, the way that things are valued will just change based on how the pros figure stuff out. So the initial assumptions usually are going to be proven to be incorrect in some way or another. There are certain things, though, I think, like you said already, ZP, Billy and Warden definitely seem to be rising pretty massively in value. And I could honestly even see bans for those heroes, at least with the Billy, because I think Billy is super strong right now.
Yeah. Also, real quick, we could look at the overall hero changes. We are not going to go through all of them because then, the match wouldn't be started, but...
I can't. Where's my magnifying glass?
Yeah, I know. It's just like, wait, can we zoom in on the holiday part where she still might be playable, but we need, her gun scaling got absolutely crushed.
What was that like crazy, CIS show or something like enhance the image, enhance. That's what we need to do here.
CSI is what you're looking at there.
CSI, there you go.
Yeah. Zoom enhance. But the interesting part of Holiday is that she might not be dead. Like, I thought she was 100% dead. I was getting ready to set up memes for how dead Holiday was, and then you hear the stories like, no, Spirit Burst, barrels do 300 damage with 4.8k. So, you never quite know, Dan, until you actually get into the game and see what the players have cooked up.
Totally. I mean, there's so many patches where it's like, oh, I think Pocket's dead, but then he just comes back and he's fine and actually super impactful. And I wonder if this will be one of those patches because, you know, we kind of shifted over to more gun. I feel like some of the spirit heavy heroes definitely got a bit of a knock. But again, we're going to find out.
Yep, and find out, we need our team. So let's get into our first team roster here, and it is going to be the Leviathan roster. Let me take a quick look at here first. And again, wait, that's not Leviathan. That's Buff and George. They died. Okay. Okay. Well, you know, a little bit of sad memories there, Dan, for what was. But okay, Leviathan. Obviously, they did pick up Obakim, and you know, before this was maybe a sub when Buff and George was taking a break. This may be a little bit more permanent now. And overall, I mean, there's a lot of experienced talent here on this team, and you know, one of the most impressive rising stars in OCs.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting too because for those of you that haven't been around too much, when we did see OCs playing, initially it was a massive priority for him to be put on heroes, especially like Ivy, where jungling and having like solo lanes was very, very critical to his playstyle to help him get ahead in the game. Now, obviously, that's not going to be as impactful anymore, so we'll definitely have to see some different gameplay from OC. So that in of itself, I think, to me, is an interesting prospect.
And of course, the opposition, Fearless Furies, who have, you know, basically slotted into where Lodos used to be here on Night Shift. The team that is, you know, we did update here. All these players have played for Fearless Furies at one point. Yes. Even though Fremont is on Leviathan today.
Are they all fighting for a spot?
You know, it's EU. Like, the rosters actually change like every 2 seconds, but sometimes an hour before the game. I've tried to like make the process a little bit more refined, Dan, where we go to players, you know, day of and be like, okay, what's your roster gonna be today? But look, the key here for players that are actually be playing today, as I look at what I've been given, you know, number one, Surgery. Where I think in his case here, Dan, even though he showed a really good doorman and was probably his most impressive hero in recent times, Warden's back. In Surgery, very prolific Warden player overall. Was even trying to make it work when Warden was kind of bad.
Yeah, I think Surgery's always a really fun player and impactful player to watch, and just getting players getting added and removed before our eyes. Coffin as well. Paradox. Paradox is one I'm going to be very curious to see where the pro is, because I can only imagine. Okay, all right, okay, you got Cole in there as well. You know what? I'm out. I'm done with this screen. It's
just I can't honestly. With this. I'll be clear. None of this was pre-planned. This was just, you know, the production just making a little bit of fun of the ever-changing Fearless Furies roster. It's like, well, there's been a lot of people on this team here, Dan. But also, you know, experienced players, some, you know, maybe more so than others. And, you know, look, you never quite know what's going to happen, especially in a best of one. But, you know, to see who's going to get the draft, who's going to get their choice of first or second pick with all this meta changes. You got to do our Mo and Krill 1v1.
Here we go. All right, who is who? That's a very long name. The text is too long and I can't read it. In fact, is that Cyrillic? That is not legible to me. I don't understand.
I don't think the players got on their normal Steam names before the Mo 1v1, but what we know is that we got a blue Mo and a yellow Mo, and the yellow Mo is winning. Back and forth.
Mo's definitely someone that benefited from this patch too, I think, ZP. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, Mo's interesting too, especially even on Playmaker priority. Like, if you have something like Holiday that's a little bit less valued than Mo, who's kind of does a little bit of both, maybe up there. But man, this one's down to the wire. Not a lot of pairing, just a lot of high value, quick melees. And finally, Blue Mo is going to win. Yeah. Honestly, I'm going to peek into the player channel to figure out who had first pick. Like, I don't even know if they told us. They may have just said draft is ready. Either way.
All right. Well, this is the moment, CP, because I feel like, okay, Shiv is still going to be very good. And Shiv is still someone you've got to probably... I don't know if teams want to ban it, but I feel like you don't want the other team to play it. So so I don't know if Fearless Furies, you know, what their choice is here. Do they go for the ban?
It's going to be interesting, too, because I think in EU, Warden may get, like, ultra highly valued because there's so many people that just wanted to play a ton of Warden, and he's up there. But, okay, Shiv is banned, so Shiv gets +1 ban for the pick ban chart at the end of the night. But what's it going to be for first pick here? Because this is where it's interesting. Is it the Billy? There's been a lot of talk about, okay, Billy is just the GOAT in more ways than one now. And, yeah, it's Billy. Yeah.
All right, there you go. I am curious if Warden's on the other end in the first two. If Fearless Furies will decide to go for that. I don't even know who's on their roster right now, so I don't even know like what their reports are really looking like. We're gonna find out in the game, but it's gonna be oh, right. Okay. I don't know if he got that buffed, CP.
Yeah, okay. Well, he did get buffed, and his regen lane is pretty good. And you got a global health buff, which kind of offset the nerf he got, but that is wild. That is way higher than where NA has been putting Drifter. Drifter was more of a back-end pick in scrims this week, and Yamato for Fearless Fury is still being highly valued. So I think EU and NA are going to be drastically different in draft priority. But for Leviathan, I'm looking at this here, especially thinking about what members on Fearless Furies like to play. I think Warden is going to be one of the next two picks, and probably a playmaker. Like, okay, no, this is actually full lane supremacy, Dan. This is the way the new lanes work. You get more value out of both Billy and Abrams. Abrams wasn't being that highly picked in NA, but EU is like, no, dominate the lane. Get the good melee characters. So you got Billy, you got Abrams. Do you double down with the Warden here, or you playmaker? Okay, finally you get Bebop, who, in theory, Bebop and Paradox should still be higher prio with Holiday taking a hit.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Paradox is already really good, and part of it is the consistent gun damage that he's able to do, and so I feel like this patch definitely helps. But there's the Warden, so you're totally right. We're seeing a shift in terms of priorities. Obviously, Holiday is still available for the team for let's say Fearless Furies decide to give up the Paradox, but I mean, do they want to ban the Paradox here? Do they think Leviathan will even want to pick the Paradox with people already in place? So they take out Wraith. So Wraith is definitely a lot more annoying now, but I think ZP, she's kind of similar in how she used to be. She really does need to hit the patch. It can't be, has to be feast or famine, basically. Yeah. Either she's in the game, she's got the power spikes at the right time, or she's just not really all that present, it feels like.
All right, Sinclair gets banned. Sinclair's also been up in prio. Both, I think Sinclair gets a lot out of the new 4.8k power spikes. I mean, you thought he was a menace in lane before. Now Vexing Bolt just takes off even more of your HP, but also the double swap was one of the bigger buffs in the patch. So Sinclair's higher prio, not too unexpected. Dynamo's also the other one. By the way, like, people have been wondering, Dynamo could be real, especially because of just how annoying Stomp is after the buffs here, Dan. It may not be a meme, or it could just be players, jumping at shadows, but there is some reasoning behind it.
I'm a little late.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of these support characters got a bit better with the gun buff. I think it just does give them that extra bit of damage output that can make them a bit more annoying to deal with in these fights, and then you get all the extra utility in the lockdown. We did actually get a change to the way the lockdown works. We didn't talk about that, where there is now, I'm not sure what the best way to put this is, but if you get chain stunned basically by different abilities, you get less punished by it. Each successive ability that stuns you has more kind of drop off in duration, so that you don't just get locked into infinity.
You can only run from
Holiday comes on in, but it's probably gonna be a different Holiday build here, Dan. This is where when people are saying she's not dead, it's probably Spirit Spike Holiday, where you go full barrel max and you just throw out like really strong barrels, taking advantage of the 4.8k spike and the Paradox end. So you get Holiday and Paradox at the end of the draft, and obviously this makes sense in the current iteration of the meta, but this would be sacrilege last patch.
Totally, and I think it reflects also the shift in priorities. You've got stronger walkers. You can't, the split pushing is not going to be as effective as it used to be. You need some of these tempo, kind of more frontline heavy driven lineups to be able to really just get ahead in objectives. And because the jungle is weaker, the objectives are where you're going to be able to extract the most control on the map. So it makes a lot of sense to see this ZP. But we do see Ivy sneaking in right at the end, and I am curious if OCs is going to be up to his usual shenanigans, or if not.
Gotta be. And look, regardless of wherever you put Ivy's power right now, what fixes any power concerns, Dan? Getting rich. And there's no better player at getting rich right now than OCs, and what we've seen. Just one of the most efficient farmers across either region. But this is gonna be interesting. I mean, again, anytime you get into a new patch, you have to kind of put aside your, general biases on what's good and what's bad, and because I don't think either of us can make a strong call and be like, this team's gonna win for sure. This other, maybe. And you can make good arguments either side. I will say though, from what I know, just off the scrim thing, the laning for Leviathan is going to be horrifying between Billy, Abrams, and Bebop. They're all really, really good with the lane changes that came in.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think Drifter might actually be okay, which is interesting. The fact that it was first pick actually is really telling, or should be, and like logically it should be telling that Fearless Furies think it's high value even, which I wouldn't have ever pegged it to be high value. So very curious how they build it, how they utilize it. But to be honest, EP Drifter, again, if we're thinking about just the big objective games, if you're trying to land good dynamo ults, if you're trying to take down objectives, if you're trying to get people into Warden's ult, Drifter's ult is actually a nice setup piece for big space control.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say even on a personal note, Drifter ult may be my most hated ult in the entire game. It is a just miserable experience to fight against. So the fact that you get a teamfight ult that actually is quite good on top of a hero that is doing really good gun damage now and a lot better in lane, it's not a surprise that Drifter has gone up higher in priority. I didn't expect EU the value Drifter this highly because a lot of my draft intel this week around came from the NA side, but both regions, they're mixing in Drifter pretty regularly. He is part of the rotation and, you know, by all accounts, seems to be viable. And we'll see if that plays out in his win rate, Dan.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Jacksonville with the 20 gifted. Let's go.
Yeah, Jacksonville kicking off with a bang. Yeah. Well, this match is definitely going to get spicy, I think, with these comps. I can't wait to see how this actually plays out. I do think Drifter in the lane is pretty nasty on the damage output. So I'm curious what that's going to look like in this new edition of Deadlock, because maybe it's going to be the case that we do see Drifter in most games now. I mean, there's a world. Yeah, I think it's a world that's very likely. And I mean, look, it just shows some of the changes that come in. You know, a little bit of gun buffs here, a little bit of extra regen there, and suddenly he's a force of nature. Not the least of which, too, is figure out how the Dynamo works and who Dynamo's going to be laned with here. Like, who's your lane partner? Is it going to be Billy Page, though, for the Billy lane? And looks like that. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be the case. It's going to be Billy Page on the left, up against the Holiday Drifter.
All right, well, it begins. I'm a bit afraid. I don't know what we're going to see, but it's cool to see the meta shift forcibly due to the patch. In most games, I don't like that. Okay, Drifter's on 10 HP.
we spent all the time like, yeah, it's a new agent Drifter, everyone. Drifter's here, and he's dead. He's actually dead at the beginning, which, you know, may more to the play of Leviathan than anything else, but, you know, we kind of built up a really strong caster curse there, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, this lane is probably cursed. I mean, Billy Page was nasty before. Yep. So I feel like Billy Page is like not even poor man's Kelvin Shiv, but it's like it is kind of a duo to be afraid of.
It's different. Even with the nerfs, I think Page is still pretty darn good. But all right, down the shaft we go. Bebop Abrams, this is a lane that genuinely is scary. Like, you have to expose yourself a little bit more to get in range of the soul orbs, which means you are more likely to get charged, you are more likely to get hooked. And in this case, why not both? Yes, you have enormous poke damage from Paradox Yamato, but between the two, you know, the odds of potentially getting snapped is pretty high.
Warden, Dynamo. That's actually pretty nasty. You know, the combination of the kinetic pulse to, and also the, you know, Warden's jail. So that's definitely a very scary thing to be up against. And not to mention the tankiness on offer with the Aurora heal as well. So just generally, this is kind of quite a bully situation that Leviathan have to deal with. Two bullies.
Well, not only that, too, is that, you know, the HP or Dynamo's heal works out pretty well with Warden, you know, how aggressive Warden tends to be in lane. And I mean, this was an OG lane combo before Dynamo's laning got seen as just too bad to be useful. But also, Bebop Abrahams getting their pound of flesh here against the Yamato Paradox lane, which, you know, historically has been one of the best lanes to put in middle. But this is a lane where if you make even the mildest amount of positioning misplay, Dan, you're just going to get thumped.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look into charge, into dead. Well, the other thing we have to also consider is how the tempo of the game in theory has changed. I think a lot of the feedback I saw was that people expect it to be slower because the sidewalkers are like 40% stronger than they used to be. So, you know, the split pushing isn't going to be enough to take them down in like a good time. So you'll see the walkers staying up maybe much later into the game than we saw before. However, the pros haven't really developed the meta yet. And with drafts like this, maybe that's not going to be the case.
It's kind of a catch-22 though, because yes, you have structural changes, but hold on, Billy going all the way in, backed up by Paige, diving on the Drifter again, punished all the while on the dive. Ends up backing out. Drifter able to maintain a reasonable amount of HP, but the parry back over in the mid, Psy falling as this mid lane has been super aggressive, and Hook comes in and ends up pinning Abrams instead. Gets hit with the bomb, dives over, and Yamato's all in here, Dan.
Yeah, goodbye, Colt. Yeah. Bebop is probably always going to be good. Given the fact that Bebop, you can easily pivot him into Spirit or Gun always, and the Hook is just so universally powerful, and the ult. So it's like, it's cool to see that Bebop is going to be a mainstay, I think, in probably every meta. And it's kind of a random point, but...
No, I mean, it's the Hook character power. And Hook characters, I mean, they generally have to be pretty bad to not have a use one way or another, just because of how powerful displacement is, and, the multiple ways that you can, take advantage of it. But also, as you take a look at it here too, the early game has also changed a bit, where it's still really important, but you have a little bit more room to work with, where you get one extra item slot here for free, and then, extra item slots are given via the walkers now, right? So there's not as much pressure to be the first team to get all 3 Guardians down, even though you do get more map presence as a result. Ayano, though, able to hit the Warden Dynamo lane, getting some reasonable work done here.
And it's kind of nice too, because I feel like they made the item slots, the way that works, I think overall just more intuitive and better, where you just need to get the 3 walkers down. Like each walker is going to be 1 item slot, unless I'm misremembering it.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now you open with 9 slots, and then you get 1 slot from each walker, and that brings you to the old total. But there's a little bit less pressure early on if you fall behind. You're less likely to get stuck in slots to where you can't buy what you want to buy. But we have things going back and forth on the left lane. Both Guardians still in reasonable HP, but the Paige Billy lane definitely holding its own against the new and improved Drifter, as it were.
Yeah, it seems like Fearless Furies might be the first ones to win a lane on that right side, but here we can see the Lasso being as problematic as ever, trying to get the captivating read there to help save the Billy, and I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Drifters coming on through for the chase down. It looks like actually Billy's going to survive, so... Oh no, nope. Never mind. Looks like Surgery managed to find that shot at distance.
So, somewhere I can imagine Billy and the actor's voice being like, "What do you mean survive? I'm nearly dead here. What are you talking about?" Commentary just breaks the 4th wall. It's just like, I'm actually dead. Actually angry about the entire process of being killed. To me, that'd be on brand for Billy. But yeah, right hand side, Fearless Furies real close to getting the Guardian down. Or of course off the Warden Dynamo, and Warden and Ivy getting deep into it here. Dynamo collapsing at the same time. Looking at Ivy's HP. Ivy's HP totally fine, and Vindicta off the assassinate. 1 more shot away from potentially putting Warden back to spawn.
And wow, OC's finding the kill onto the Warden there. Bob goes down. Stake. Is that going to be enough to keep Oberkim up and running? Oberkim's had great performances of late on this sniper character on Vindicta. Manages not just to survive, but to get the kill. Really well done. I mean, this lane has been very difficult up against the Warden and the Dynamo, but they managed to get the kills there, to take control.
Chain Gang in. Empty Dreams able to convert onto Arzo from it. And I think the interesting thing to me, Dan, and maybe it's just these 2 teams, we need more data, but it's been a slower lane phase here. It's 8 minutes in, and no Guardians down here thus far. This would be a rarity pre-patch, and of course, as I say, that 2 Guardians go down, but this is still a slower pace than what we had last patch.
Yeah. We'll see what Abrahams have to say about that later on. Hyper Beam over the top from overseas. So that mid lane seems for both Guardians are really healthy. Oberkim chasing down the Dynamo. It's not going to be able to find the finishing shot, I don't think. There we go. The abduction. Oh my goodness, but the charge straight back. Very confusing. Then gets actually pulled by the hook. Oh my god, that is not fun at all. Surgery thought that he had a pick.
Yeah, it quickly goes sideways there, Dan, as we see the right Guardian and it falling. So Guardians on both sides take a bit of damage. And one thing that's worth noting here too, kind of talked about previously, but for Holiday, it's Spirit Holiday. Like that was full on Spirit. It is not the early gun investment that you got previously. So Surgery, you know, it's going to be full barrel max into utility focused, but a little bit contesting here onto the Sinners. And that's, you know, it's not great when you see their team come forward and just, you know, take a bite of your Sinners. Now, though, going the other way. Sai, able to find one. And all in all, Leviathan working on a reasonable lead here at 6K here, Dan. But, you know, not something that's insurmountable by the Fearless Furies by any margin.
Yeah, pretty chill right now, overall. I mean, there's many questions here. You know, one of the questions is, what is Drifter's power? Or at least what is Arzo able to show us in terms of that in this particular draft? What is the power of Ivy and how will OCs actually play it? Because OC's style, like we talked about, relied on jungling. And it's not to say that jungling can't still work. In fact, in a sense, the jungle's going to be more available. So because, you know, less jungle is going to be farmable by most heroes. So there might be a world DP where it actually does benefit OCs and that playstyle if it's really lent into.
We'll see. I mean, it's hard to say because I haven't done a ton of Ivy myself. Some of the things I was hearing is that the overall jungle nerfs, like Ivy has a harder time jungling just because she takes more damage mid jungle. And the jungle HP, like kind of. Overall, she's jungling slower, and she has to heal a little bit more than she did before. So, you know, one of the tells here is just going to be seeing, you know, does OCs get way ahead of the game the way they did before? You have more overall souls in the game, but is that going to be reflected in the amount of, you know, portion that OCs gets out of it? But buffs are up, and the first urn is soon to be in play. I'm looking at it right now. It's going to be Leviathan with control of the urn, and we'll see how this one gets approached.
One interesting thing is that you can see OC's likely going quite spirit heavy on Bebop and likely going focus lens, given that he has spirit sap already. So we're going to see focus lens a lot. That's one of the items that's going to be very, very abundant, I think, in this new version of the game.
Oh yeah, especially at pre-nerf wars and everything, and you know, not much contest coming in here from Fearless Furies. Instead, they go, okay, you can grab urn. We're going to go for mid Guardian instead. Get rid of that impediment. Meanwhile, look here. Just mid lane for Fearless Furies in the Holiday, and they're giving up some amount of pressure onto the right. Walker overall, though, seems to be in an okay spot. Like, you see 4 people around the Walker and go, uh-oh. And in this instance, still totally fine as Drifter in on the chase down, gets a jump line, stun, and a little bit away from the finishing blow.
I thought that Arzo had that one. He's going to have to try to escape himself, though. Quick little parry, and it's just going to slow him down. Captivating Reese going to capture him. He is compelled, captivated indeed, as this escape looks quite unlikely to bomb. There to finish it off as well from overseas. And those bombs are going to hurt, especially with the Spirit Sap.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Bebop's build and where people go. Of course, last patch, a lot of people were John pilled and just full vitality no matter what. Now, maybe a little bit more of an evenly balanced approach, at least, you know, a bit more spirit being shown here by overseas. So 66k to 60k here. Not a bad spot for Leviathan to be in. Yeah, we haven't really talked about in terms of scaling and what to expect into the late game. I'm a little bit torn as I look at this in terms of late game options. I think on paper, I would almost say Fearless Fury's late game is scarier than Leviathan's, but it really depends on the performance of Billy and Abrams here as a quick charge here. In on the Bobby, and Bobby is just completely wrecked.
All right, so the Guardian goes down on the left side in favor of Fearless Furies, but they got to escape. And you know what? They got numbers. They don't need to escape. They can just chill. They withdraw, and instead it's this assault siege on the right Walker as Fearless Fury is trying to defend, and the damage is pretty immaculate at the moment. No resistance. This is going to be a very early walker for this new Metro, I feel like. 13-minute mark, if they can get it, but they're going to have to fall back, and I think that just goes to show how strong walkers are right now.
Yeah, I think pre-patch Walker may have been dead. Billy right now. First Paradox. Gang comes in, and not enough to save Empty Dreams, who is quickly dispatched. 1 up right now for Fearless Furies. As you see, Obakim immediately evening the score back over in the middle. Quick assassinate here on the cult, where that middle guardian's still up, but not for long. Assassinate and a little bit of bullet damage, enough to do the job.
Over there.
It's been really awesome to see Obakim playing a lot of Vindicta, because I feel like Obakim for a long time was often on supports, like pure supports, like playing like really heavy support Haze, and just in the meta where Haze was very basically not getting farm and just getting basically owned all the time. I felt like every time we would see Obakim, he's just having a hard game. But since he started playing Vindicta, we're seeing like a different version of him, which is awesome. He's very, very good at it. And you can see him farming up here.
You're not stopping.
Arzo getting caught out again. Also, if we could go back to Bobby's build, that's actually more of a hybrid Warden build than I might have expected coming in. You know, 2 schools of thought. You look at melee creeps. John's just been spamming nothing but hard gun Warden, but you know, this right here, a little bit more spirit heavy with the intensive magazine, but the early bullet resist shredder. A little bit interesting. Meanwhile, Dynamo in some real danger here. Empty Dreams finishing off the Quantum. And again, it's going to be this push onto the right-hand Walker, which is kind of low on HP now, Dan.
Yeah, it makes sense for the composition, you know, trying to keep that pressure on, but having to fall back, having to respect the Drifter roll there. Again, that's what we were talking about earlier in terms of like a setup piece. Drifter roll is just going to absolutely send back the other team. So it's a really nice ult. It has a lot of utility, defensively, offensively. And the pressure might be on the left side of the map now, but for Leviathan, looking to whittle down the left side Walker. Nice pin there. Very big damage on the Paradox. The swap comes on through, but Paradox needs to survive. The stun under the Walker here is creating problems. And Freemark is just barely able to survive on the Abrams. And looks like this Walker will be defended. Little damage done to it. But in the meantime, CP, there's a gathering around the urn on the right side.
Not only is there gathering around the urn, I mean, you win this fight, you're going to get control of the urn. You're likely going to be able to slam Walker right after. Arzo completely crushed from all ends. Now, the urn, if they pick it up, it's going to have to go in the enemy territory, so it's not as great for Leviathan. They're right at the edge, so they get control of the urn. I'm a little surprised that with the amount of people they have on the right that they didn't take the time to just take down right Walker. They're full committed here to the urn, but, you know, going into this territory is a little bit rough, especially versus the Dynamo.
Yeah, Dynamo does add an interesting wrinkle back again to the game. And especially, you know, if you get that refresher Dynamo online later, in the match, you're never really safe. That urn still being held onto by Leviathan for the time being, and Fearless Furies respecting it, you know, positioning around the deposit spot. In the meantime, Osies is farming up by himself, but he might be a ripe target for Drifter, looking for those isolated kills.
Oh, they're going for it. That's a 2-on-1 in the right-hand side. Drifter Yamato. Is it enough to chase down one OCs? We're about to find out. You see the chase down flying strike in off the Yamato. Drifter yet to join the fight. Drifter was going on the flank and ends up missing out a lot of the engagement opportunity. Enough for Page and Abrams now to rotate and give a little bit of support to OCs. All the while, by the way, Obakim's just been losing HP hanging on to the urn. Leviathan not making their urn entry just yet.
So this might be the moment, though. There is potentially a window, but Dynamo is now shown up to the fight, so a singularity could be on the other end of this. You can see the positioning is there. That is the singular job of Ayano in that position on the Dynamo. Find the just greatest singularity as you can. And whoa, the catch comes on through. Obakim, though, saved thanks to the knockdown, able to get out of there using that jump pad as well. But in the meantime, the fight breaks out, and I don't know, do both teams want to fully engage on this one? The Hyper Beam is getting ripped here at the moment.
Arzo got really good value. Was able to chase down Obakim at the beginning. Getting good separation here on the Drifter, chasing down Abrams. Urn pickup in the middle, all this. Cult grabs the Urn here for the series. They may be able to take this one away from Leviathan. They're the ones looking to turn it in, but instead the pull comes, but Dynamo with the body block gets in front of it, stops the Urn pull, gets the Urn turn in here for Fearless Furies, and though they lose Ayano, you're up the Urn. Can they get a little bit more towards the end? Cult right now looking for it. Able to take down Billy at the aid of surgery. Goes down in the process. Both teams now trading back and forth, but a pretty good fight for the Furies all in all. Yeah, they're down in kills, but they get the urn and, get a kill of their own in turn.
And that mid walker has been getting absolutely blitzed by OCs in the midst of all this. In fact, OCs is just like just gonna take it down 100-0. And he's gonna save Overkim as well. That is very nice. That's a little robo-taxi situation.
Interesting part here, getting brought up also by production, but also the eye test and looking at it, that OCs has gotten 2 walkers now, essentially being the only person there. So you want a way to bump up your farm in Deadlock. Just be the one solo grabbing a walker, as OCs, you look at the overall farm right now, Dan, massive separation with the rest of the game, and a little bit of a difference too in terms of item build here, where previously it might have been just pure gun with a little bit of vitality. Now you mix in the bullet resist shredder, get a little bit of spirit in your life.
Yeah, you always want high spirits. You always want to make sure that you can evade this paradoxical swap, somehow evading death. Overkim, okay, never mind. Overkim eventually will get taken down because you got the Drifter on the backside of that one. Now, the fight will continue around this Walker, but will Fearless Furies be able to breach through? They have to win this fight to do so. Drifter pretty weak. Arzo looking for any victims. Oh, the catch there, the lasso, really huge here on OCs. Stoneform is just going to prevent him from dying immediately, but still dying nonetheless. And this now gives up potentially a walker. There's nothing to stop this now. The defensive line is gone. But in the meantime, Billy is getting a walker of his own here on the left.
It's going to be a big chunk of change heading into Empty Dreams' bank account there if he's able to finish it off, which is looking likely. Freemuck also getting the punch of the Arzo, where Arzo has felt like a bit of a glass cannon, getting some good kills on the Drifter, but also getting caught out just as much the same. Still, first walker gonna go here for Fearless Furies, but here's the chase down from Leviathan. They can get 1 or 2 more kills here, Dan. They can easily turn this in the mid-boss. Sai getting caught on the retreat. 2 down for Fearless Furies so far here, and they want to add Cult to the total. Cult off the Shadow transformation, mostly in full retreat. Goes back in a little bit. Jukes with the flying strike to go back the other way. Is that enough to actually shake it for Cult? No, it is not. 3 down. Mid-boss has to be on the menu now for Leviathan.
Yeah, every single ult also expended by Fearless Furies, all except the last stand from Warden. So no threat at all. Easy free walker. OC is doing OC things, CP. 28k souls on him, so he's been alone most of the game. There we go, we get the Rejuve crystals claimed. And the urn is being held on to. I wonder, do they want to try to force the urn fight? Because they do have the Warden ults, and it could potentially be a way to get rid of some of these rejuves.
I think here the number one thing for having urn is just so the Leviathan doesn't get urn. You don't want to give up urn with as an extra bonus to the rejuve, but realistically, I don't think you want to take a fight out of base. Maybe you get a holiday hook, but realistically for Fearless Furies, you want to play around Singularity if you can in a closed-in space. You're really behind at this point on actual power, and that's before taking into account the rejuve. So an open fight just isn't in your favor at the moment.
The fight will be forced nonetheless, though, as we'll get Overkim high up in the skies, trying to see what he can find, looking for the snipes. And Sai just evading him there for the finishing blow, but nonetheless, Leviathan pushing through this quite easily, reaching into the base, looking to get all the kills. OCs is devastatingly strong at the moment on this Ivy, and both shrines are going to go down, no trouble. In fact, everybody getting wiped. This might just be the end.
We're heading towards the end one way or another here, whether it is dropping Patron and going all in or not. And frankly, at this little advantage, you can just all in the Patron if you wanted to. We'll see if Leviathan makes that shot call. You got enough of the one-win DNA in this team that it was never a team to shy away from the end game call. They're not backing out. Second stage Patron dropping, and for Fearless Furies, we'll see if they have what it takes. They don't have a Singularity here, though, Dan, so as a result, it's going to be Leviathan taking the map. They're going to be moving on to play against Abrahams.
Beautiful work, and I think the expected result. But I gotta say, ZP, this just kind of happened all at once, it felt like to me. I thought we were in for a very slow game. Slow laning phase. We saw how difficult it was to siege the walkers. But nonetheless, Leviathan going from strength to strength, team fight into mid-boss into end. Very clean.
Yeah, and I mean, they got ahead in the early game, and, you know, realistically, just better rotations, better trades. I mean, even the urn that they gave up, like the one fight that was pretty reasonable, the comeback urn for Fearless Furies, well, okay, they got the urn mid-fight, and they got, you know, a kill or two, even though they got killed more in turn. But while that was happening, OCs was able to split off, grab a walker, and make it overall probably better for Leviathan on the whole. So even though the advantages may build a little bit slower in this meta, they still build all the same.
They certainly do. They certainly do. And it's been very interesting to see the take of both of these teams, these squads, in how do we play the new patch, the new small patch that's really huge. And it's going to be Abraham's that will next show us their interpretation of what they think is best. And they tend to lead the meta in Europe, it feels like, CP. So I'm going to be very much looking forward to seeing that battle as we see Leviathan finding a lot of success with some of the classics. You know, bringing out the Vindicta on Overkim looks really good. Overseas on the classic Bebop. Also, Ivy, Billy. I mean, honestly, this was a draft that resembled... I mean, you could have run this in the previous meta and it still would have looked pretty great.
I think when I look at, you know, potential draft mistakes here, I do wonder if Yamato may have been a little bit overvalued. I just feel like when I looked at a lot of the scrims, Yamato was getting a lower prio, and I may be completely wrong in this, but, you know, one element that may be going towards this is that I got a DM from ABL before the show started today, and ABL said, please tell production to change my signature hero to Drifter, what he was previously on Yamato. So even for Abraham's, which used to be grab Yamato no matter what, make ABL play Yamato, they may be shifting their priority, and how much of that is Drifter and how much is Yamato, I don't know, but I do wonder if Yamato may have been just a little bit overvalued here, Dan.
Crazy. Really crazy. Drifter, a world with Drifter. Very interesting stuff, CP. There's actually a really great point-and-click adventure game called Drifter that everyone should play. That's pretty new. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
What genre is that game? Like, I'm trying to think. It almost sounds like an old like top-down shooter game, but I don't know. That's probably not the case at all.
No, it's like a point-and-click adventure game. So it's like, you know, the old school kind of Monkey Island type games, you know, that kind of stuff.
Oh, you get see.
Am I familiar with that? But
No, I do remember that. There used to be a thing back in the like 90s, early 2000s. You had a lot of those games, and they felt like a little bit out of favor. For me, I was just going, you know, trying to decide on MVP. But you know, as you look at the stats here, it's super interesting. I mean, obviously, OC's was, you know, turn the farm into just pure building destruction at the end, and showed that you can still get really ahead on Ivy, especially if you get walkers to yourselves. What stands out to me, though, damage-wise, I mean, Overseas, changes or not, was absolutely pounding on what was more of a hybrid Bebop build.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw that Spirit Sap come online pretty quickly. Overseas, not bad at hitting those hooks, one might say. And obviously getting a lot of kills with the bomb as well. So charging up the bomb damage to just really, you know, that's like that snowball bomb type of Bebop that's, you know, you see all those meme builds around where people will try to just get the Echo Shard and try to like, maybe the Witch Bale, try to get like as many bombs, spamming them as much as possible. Overseas doesn't need to do that, because he's a gangster and he can hit the hooks and confirm those kills regardless. And we can see how powerful it can be. Just bringing the capacitor online later into the game, but starting pretty spirit heavy. Really cool to see.
Yeah, and you know, trying to decipher some of this, I'm looking more at the builds. You know, the hybrid Warden build, that was interesting. I mean, I've seen multiple takes on Warden. I don't know if that is the build. I mean, some elements like, you know, Surge of Power, I think, are pretty good. The way the order of the items now is built, I don't know if it was max impact, but I guess we'll see, because I think it won't be the last we see of Warden here today. But we got our MVP locked in, and Dan, it's going to be Obakim.
Yeah, I think this is a great shout. You know, we talked about it in the match itself. Obakim, someone that we've only recently more so seen being picked up on the, or rather, piloting the Vindicta. Someone that's often playing the supportive roles and not necessarily being able to get into the action, but it turns out that you can play Vindicta, and Obakim actually has incredibly good aim and mechanics that you didn't really get to see as much before, unless maybe he's on holiday. But on Vindicta, you get to use that to its full extent, farming up with the assassinates, which really helps to make up for some of the lack of farm that you'd otherwise get in a supportive role, which keeps Obakim very active in these fights as a damage dealer, as someone with great CC with the stake, and obviously there's a lot of control that you can get out of the birds as well, depending on what sort of effects you will put with those, whether it's a suppressor or you know, whatever it might be. So a lot of great application from from Oberkim. And one thing we've got to say too about this CP, my final thought on this is that this was probably the hardest lane to be up against. The Ivy and the Vindicta up against the Warden and Dynamo. It was really oppressive, but Oberkim managed to turn it around with some great plays.
Yeah, and to Obakim's role overall team-wise, it's kind of interesting. Where Buff Enjoyers was a little bit, they didn't have someone directly and always support in the way that some of the other teams in EU and North America do. But playing with Leviathan, normally you're going to have the person that's playing more supporty. It's usually going to be flammable. So Obakim is a little bit more freed up to play things like Vindicta or Holiday more actively. And I think that may be Obakim's general preference too. We'd have to interview him to kind of get an idea of it. But I think roles are going to get a little bit more defined as time goes on here in Deadlock. But overall, Leviathan, they were the favorite team coming on in. They proved that with their win over Fearless Furies. Now they get their matchup against Abraham's, the money match, where, of course, at least $600 on the line, and could be more depending on donations to the prize pool. We may have gotten one or two in the middle that I did not see. I'm not sure the overlay is up on it, but either way, we will keep you apprised of where the prize pool stands.
Yeah, the big boss of EU, Abraham's, obviously with Buff Enjoyers, perhaps being on hiatus for the moment. We'll see how that goes. Abraham's they're the kings, and so it's gonna be great to see what they have in this best of three. Obviously, Leviathan and the players on Leviathan are gonna be no strangers to playing Abraham's, so I think it's gonna be a really fun draft, and I can't wait to see how the teams interpret how to play one another in this patch.
All right. Well, it's all set here for the money match. It's going to be Abraham's versus Leviathan next. Also, we did get an update. We got a $25 donation. We'll get the proper shout out when we come back from the break. But this is Deadlock Night Shift. EU is just heating up. Will Abraham's defend their throne once more? Got to stay here after the break to find out.